What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? Y'all know what time it is. It's your boy, Kizzie in the building. Can't wait to talk. And I'm going to talk about it. Man, I'm so happy to be with y'all, man. If y'all ain't already done, man, subscribe. Hey, come on, subscribe, man. Check me out, man. Check out this platform, because we talking about some heavy things. We talking about weighty conversations. We talking about things that ain't nobody else really talking about. But we just got it. Well, I mean, people talking about it, but it's just a different aspect, because in every life, in everything that we do in life, man, there's weight all around us and things that we're carrying that we not even realize that we're carrying. So why do we carry that? You know what I'm saying? Like, let's lose that weight. Let's get rid of that weight so we can, we can fly like a bird. You know what I'm saying? Like when you realize that you no longer have to carry something, it really lifts a weight off your shoulders. And I know y'all heard that, man, whoo, like a weight off my shoulders. Exactly. That's why we can't wait to talk. So today we're gonna talk about some that I believe is important and that is special. And so without further ado, man, gonna open up this show. Got a special guest. Man, I'm excited about this. I sent out a clarion call for those who wanted to be guests on the podcast to talk about things that they've gone through or just weighty situations and conversations. And this young man reached out to me. I've been knowing him since he was a little boy, and he is definitely, we've been in part of each other's lives, and just to see where he is now, just a blessing. So I'm going ahead and introduce him. He's a Navy veteran, military police of 11 years, combat veteran. He has a master's degree in law enforcement leadership. He's been a police officer for the past 9 years, along with being a police instructor and an advanced. I want to make sure I say this because this is critical to where we're going with this episode. Advanced defensive tactics instructor. That means, hey, don't play. His greatest joy is being a father, and this is all in his daily stuff. We ain't even touched the theatrical side of him, the playwright, the honor thespian, that rhymes with something else. We ain't gonna go there, but that thespian in him, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, man, this boy, and I'm gonna try not to get into what we used to do back. I mean, we didn't do nothing bad, but we was part of a group. That's all I'm about to say. You know what I'm saying? We don't want to hotel. But anyway, without further ado, man, y'all show some love for my brother, Officer Brandon Brooks in the building. What's going on, man?
What's the deal? What's the word, baby? What's going on?
Oh man, ain't too much, man. Ain't too much, bro. I thank you for joining in today, man, and I really, really appreciate you reaching out and just wanting to be a part, man, wanting to just shed some light on some things. I know a lot of people probably wondering, like, okay, well, what y'all been talking about? What's been going on? But we're gonna cover, just something that I believe is important. We're gonna cover something that's important because the reality of it is, you are a police officer, and
Yes, sir.
you in the line of duty every day, and so the weight of this episode, the weight of this episode. I talk about weight so much that everything I say is weight. The name of this episode is Weight, Don't Shoot, and the reason why I did that is because there's so much negativity about policemen and about defunding the police departments and all of this type of stuff, and
Facts.
over history we've seen, especially black people,
Mm-hmm.
every culture doesn't have our story.
Yeah,
So for
facts.
us, it hit different. For us, it hit way different.
Yes, sir.
Because you can go back. We got we got years and years and years of treatment that we've been treated a certain type of way. We've been looked at a certain type of way. We've been done a certain type of way. So I can understand little attitude. I can understand little frustration. I can understand, just the mindset of black people. But you know, the reality of it is, police officers. I look at it as far as I understand that you know at the end of the day, it's a job, and y'all want to go home just like we go home. What because I drive in the trucking industry. A lot of times dispatchers, they might send some information out, or they'll say, hey, can you da 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 da, and I'm like, man, y'all sitting at y'all desk. Like, y'all don't have to be out here in this weather.
Yeah.
They got to deal with these people, and y'all talking about do this, that. No, I'm out here. Like, man, I can't. So it's like, for them, it's just like, hey, just do it, because it ain't no pressure to them, because they ain't, they ain't got to deal with the elements, they ain't got to deal with none of that. And then when it at 6:00 or whatever time they get off, they out. All right, y'all have a good day. And then we like, man, freeway shut down, and then our clock, because we got a clock that runs for 14 hours. Once that clock is out, you can't drive no more. You got to shut it down wherever you are. That's it. So it's like, so I get, that when you do a job that people don't understand, they just be like, oh, just do, no, like there's a lot that come with that. So before we really get deep into it, I wanted you to, I got a few questions, you know what I'm saying, try to do my little homework, a little something.
Shoot.
First off, why did you choose, oh, I'm sorry. Why did you enlist? Let's take it back some. Let's kind of give the people a little bit, of who you are. Why did you enlist into the Navy and then become a police officer?
Well, before I get into that, man, thanks for having me on here, man. I really appreciate that. The platform, man. I love what you're doing. And to get to your question, it's really it's a really kind of like a funny story, man. And for your viewers, man, I'm gonna be real transparent, man. I mean, I'm at that age where, you just, I ain't got nothing to hide, man. So the funny thing was, so I was in college, right? And I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing. I really wasn't. I had I had very strict parents, meaning my mom and my stepfather at the time. I really didn't get to get loose in high school like a lot of kids were able to get loose. So when I got to high school, I went away from home.
I know.
Yeah, So for your viewers, I'm just kind of letting them know. I wasn't able to get loose, so and I went away to college. I wasn't in Houston. So when I get there, my grandmother, she helped me get an apartment because the dorms were full. So that was the first bad decision, to give a kid an apartment off campus, who's never lived alone or anything like that. So I had an apartment, and to make it real short, I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing in school. I went to class when I wanted to go to class. So I pretty much, my first semester, I just washed, man. It was just terrible. So Christmas break, the first semester, the Christmas break, I came home, and at the time, things weren't as, me and my mother, we didn't have a good relationship. I didn't have a good relationship with her husband at the time. I didn't want to be anywhere near them and around them. So it's funny thing would have it, my sister's father, man named by the name of Jerome, he offered that I can come stay with him over the break, So I went over there, and I was on the break, and I told him my story, like what I was doing and how college wasn't going how it should have been going. And the crazy thing is, one day he was in the living room, we were just talking. He was just like, hey, man, I know you didn't do good in school, but you just can't go back to school and do, because he knew the whole story. So he was like, you can't just sit here and do nothing. And I'm like, what you mean? He's like, hey, man, I don't know what to tell you. He's like, I ain't never been in the military, but I think that'd be a good platform to get your life in order, to get you some kind of stability. And he convinced me. And the next day, he had a recruiter pull up to the crib, and it was a Navy recruiter first. Now, mind you, he was fair, as far as when I say Jerome was fair. So he got a Navy recruiter who came by first. The guy was real down to earth. We didn't talk much about the military. He just talked about what my life goals were, what I wanted out of life. And he was like, I'll come back in a few days. So the next day, a Marine recruiter shows up to the house. And I ain't gonna down talk no Marines, man. But what he was selling, I wasn't digging it, man. I wasn't digging it. And he was acting more like I was a number rather than like an individual. And he didn't really care what I thought about it. It was two of them. They really didn't care what I thought about. It was just, can we get you in there? Can we get you in there? You know, they didn't want to guarantee anything. It was just a lot of smoke and mirrors. So I already X'd him out. The next day, an Army recruiter shows up to the house. He was on the same jazz as the Marine guy was talking about.
You had the whole platoon. Yeah.
Man, one thing I could say, one thing I could say about Jerome, man, you know, God rest his soul.
Yeah.
That man, he's the reason my life is where it's at now. And I owe him much. That's why after my first enlistment, I gave him my first honorable discharge paperwork, because he truly changed the direction of my life. So the next day, the Navy guy came back, and he wasn't from Houston. He had just moved to Houston to recruit. And we talked about a lot of things, man. He talked about, you know, we started talking about the business, the programs and what they had. And he was like, you know what? They got this, they call it Master at Arms, but it's military police in the Navy. He was like, we got this military police program, man, and they offering 5G sign-on bonus. He said, so I can get you some money, and I can make sure when you get out of boot camp, you're gonna be at least the next rank up. You know, something that would take some time to get. He was like, I'm gonna make sure you get the next rank up. And I was like, okay, I ain't no fool. Can you put that in writing? He was like, give me 24 hours. 24 hours, he comes back, paperwork squared away. And in less than a week, I was on a plane to Chicago to boot camp.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I've never even heard that story. So just to hear it, that's pretty remarkable. That's pretty remarkable. So, so that happens, and you get in there, and you do your thing. What made you coming out say, man, I want to go into the police force and all of that?
So when I was in, like I said, I'm not gonna sell you a wolf ticket, but I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I was never the kid. Anybody that know me, I was never the kid that said I wanted to be a police officer when I grew up. Both of my parents were police. Yeah,
I was just gonna say, I'm like, especially since both of your parents was police officers, so it's like,
my mom, my stepfather, and my biological father, all cops. So I never wanted to be like them in that way. So when I only took the military police spot because of that $5,000 sign-on bonus. To be honest with you.
Hey.
Yeah. So when I get in, right, go through boot camp. Boot camp is boot camp. I got to my A school, went through the military police school. I wasn't in love with it yet, but when my first duty station, I ended up in Sasebo, Japan, and over there, it's like that's when I fell in love with law enforcement, man. I was like, dude, this is my thing. I had that moment. I'm like, this is it right here, man. I like this, man. I like following the rules. I like making sure people squared away, and I fell in love with that aspect of it. So going through my enlistments and going to different countries and doing law enforcement, different platforms, even did the harbor security boats and all that, expeditionary warfare and all. I did all that, different platforms in law enforcement in the Navy. And I just fell in love with it, man, to where that's when I started going to college in the Navy to get my criminal justice degree. And when I got out, it was no question what I wanted to do. When I decided to get out, I'm like, that's the lane right there. I mean, I like this, man. I fell in love with it. So when I got out, I knew that's what I was going to do. It was no question.
Wow, man, that's incredible. That's incredible. So let me ask you this. Well, you actually mentioned about the master's degree, but I guess why was it important for you to get your master's in law enforcement? Was it because that you kind of fell in love with, just that whole side? Because one thing I heard when you was talking about how you had that aha moment, it was like an epiphany of like, man, this is structure, this is discipline, and I can dig with that, like, because one thing about this world, which is why it's in so much chaos, is that there's no discipline, there's no structure, and people doing any and everything they want to do. And then, when we see stuff on the news and be like, well, what you expect?
Mm-hmm.
Y'all, you can't discipline your children, you can't do that, so it's like we got, even God, many times in the Bible where he applied pressure, he talks about structure. It's like, man, he set it up for us to have a ruling and a submission to something, was at least somebody,
rules,
and
man.
So it's like, man, what I guess to want to go to that level, to like, what, and it's interesting when I was reading your bio and I saw a master's, God was dealing with me as far as masters, and as far as like learning to master whatever that you're in, whatever that is, weight loss for me, he's like, master it, don't just do it just to be doing it. Don't just do it just to reach a goal, but master it, because when you master it, now you know the ins and the outs, how to move, and you can dominate at the highest level, So, why did you want to, I guess, in that area, kind of dominate in the highest level versus just, I'm gonna just go and just, collect a paycheck and be a police officer?
Well, this is where we get into the muddy water. So when I got out, I had a bachelor's degree when I got out. But one thing I learned real fast, and I'm going to speak to minority police officers when I say this, we have to be overqualified for the same job. You have to be, you can't just have a high school diploma and rise up the ranks as a minority in policing. It's virtually impossible. And I recognized that really fast, because everything that I was trying to do, they would find a reason not to let me do it, because they say, you don't have this qualification, you don't have this, you don't have that. So what I did, I told myself, I'm going to get every qualification I can get first. And I went and got every instructor certification, even though there were obstacles put in front of me. People didn't want me to advance because they felt like I was coming after their job, and I never did. I was just trying to build myself up. And I realized that most police officers don't even have degrees. Most of them don't. So if I'm going to be competing with these guys who are good old boys, or a person that's going to be in your face and hang out and all that stuff like that, I have to be overqualified if I'm going to be recognized. So that's one thing I said. I've got to get my master's, because not only do I want to master my craft, I want to be a better police officer, because the more education you got, the more things you can understand. Because that's the big misconception. A lot of people believe that police officers know the law and procedure. Most police officers don't. Most people just don't question it. But one thing that I told myself, I said, I'm not going to be that guy. I'm going to learn my craft. I'm going to educate myself, and I'm going to learn as much as I can. So when I'm dealing with people, when I'm dealing with situations, I have the education, I have the knowledge and the experience to do the job and do it effectively. I'm not just shooting from the hip, So I went ahead and that's what I did.
Wow. He said, I'm not just shooting from the hip, literally.
Yeah. No pun intended.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Look, you ain't even seen the flyer that I got, so I'm gonna send it to you after this. But man, well, boy, this is good. So what do we need to know as citizens about what y'all deal with? Because me and you had a conversation, before we did this. And you was like, hey, if we can go deep, you want to get. And so there's this, I guess, this narrative, like that cops are just out here killing people. Because we've seen it for the last, I don't know, few years. But I would say this. We've seen it for years, like I talked about earlier. But here, it just seemed like here in these last few, probably about 5 years, it's been just, I mean, it seemed like at least several times a year, oh, somebody got killed, somebody da. So why is it that is it okay? I'm trying to figure out how I want to ask this. Is it just police are untrained, or they're fearing for their life? Because the reason why I say wait, don't shoot is because I'm looking at it from the police standpoint, like, yo, I got to defend myself from criminal activity or whatever the case may be. So when these police officers are using force or deadly force, kind of share what we talked about on the phone, as far as like the type of officers that are actually out there on the beat on a day-to-day basis, and why it is like it is.
So I hear all the noise. I mean, I read. I mean, I see the social media. I see the internet blogs and all these things in the news and what they say. And there are some truth in these things, but under that, it's like you got to examine who's doing what and why is it happening. So you have, and I'll just talk about what we were talking about on the phone. Every officer is different, but there are some officers who, first off, let me say, I don't believe there's any officer that just says, I want to kill somebody today. And I'm going to tell you why. Because the investigation that you guys don't see behind the scenes that happens when you fire your weapon, whether you hit somebody or not, whether you kill somebody or not, you're under the microscope. They're taking your gun away, which means what? You can't work, or you're sitting in dispatch. If they allow you to sit in dispatch and you're not getting your real paycheck anyway, you're going to get a dispatch rate for sitting in dispatch if it's available. If it's not, you don't have your gun, you can't do your job. So most officers are not going to work and said, I want to shoot somebody. Okay, that's number one. Number two is every officer, first and foremost, is a human being, and everybody's different.
Exactly.
We come from different backgrounds. Like me, in my we'll take off my military side. In my 9 years of out here in the street policing, I've never had to draw my gun on anyone. Thank the Lord. Hope I never have to, never want to. And the reason I say that is I'm not afraid, number one, I'm not afraid of my own people. I understand my people. Yeah, I've gotten in arguments and disagreements with people on scenes that are my people. But for the most part, I've never had to fire my weapon, point my weapon at anybody. But I'm a different human being. What scares me may scare another officer. And that's what people have to take into account. And this is what I tell my young guys all the time. Not officers, my young guys on the block, in the street, the ones I deal with. You have to understand, these officers are very different. The way you can talk to me, you can raise your voice. I know you're expressing yourself and I'm talking to you. You're not making me nervous. But if you make that officer nervous and he's going to say he's in fear for his life because you're jumping around, you're yelling, you're not following instructions, you're putting yourself in a bad situation. You don't know this guy's background. And like I told you on the phone, you got a lot of officers that was that kid in high school that was picked on. Never had a voice, never been a leader, nobody ever paid attention to him. And he couldn't wait to turn 21 to become a police officer so he can have some kind of leadership and authority over somebody. Wow. And that's a lot of our officers that are walking around here. They can't wait to see somebody doing something they don't have no business. They are the ones out here messing with people, and the ones that you're hearing have all these issues, But you have officers like myself or someone like my colleagues that my own people don't. I'm well versed in different types of people. I can deal with any type of person.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I can show respect. I might not get it back. But there are procedures and things that have to go into place if a person doesn't follow instructions. Because the number one place a police officer is killed, if your viewers don't notice, is on traffic stops. So most of the time you say, oh, they're pulling us over. If you look at the nationwide statistics, police officers die most on traffic stops when people are not following instructions. You know what I mean? So you have to always think that these officers are people. that have past, that have implicit bias. They you know, the little black kid that has the dreads and jumping around on the corner, he doesn't scare me. I got nephews like that, relatives like that. But to a white man from a small town who's never seen that, and you jumping around and you just doing all, you're scaring him. You're making him uncomfortable. You're tensing him up, you know? So don't draw attention to yourself. You know what I mean? A lot of these interactions where these guys are murdered by police, they're saying the police murdered them. My question is, how did we get there? How did you end up in that contact with that police officer? You know, now I understand, because I had a young lady that I knew very well, 12-year-old girl. She was asleep in bed. People were shooting outside her house. Somebody shot her while she was asleep. It wasn't a police officer, but she was asleep. You know, that kind of stuff. An officer does something like that. Let's just say officer does that. That's wrong. But if you're in a confrontation with a police officer, okay, and that officer, he's going to stand on the stand and say, you made him feel threatened by your gesturing and not following instructions, digging all over the place, saying, F this, I'm not listening to you, don't touch me. What do you think's going to happen to the officer? Nothing. Because he's in the line of duty, and the number one thing, you weren't following instructions. Follow instructions. Survive the encounter. And if the officer does something he's not supposed to be doing, there's a whole procedure that we can get into a little bit later of how we get rid of those guys.
Well, now we can talk about that now. Like what is that procedure? Because I think people feel like they don't have a voice. I think people feel like, you know, the police is just gonna get over because it's the system. They feel like there's a system to where it's, like you said earlier, the good old boy system. So I kind of look at it like the NFL and how the owners of the NFL, you know, they majority, all of them, you know, are a certain color. I ain't gonna go into all that, but you know, so because there's a certain color, it's almost like, well, we gonna band together, and you know, we not finna pay this player, we not finna do this. Like if one do it, like now, we gonna stick together. That whole Kaepernick thing, you know, he took a stand, and those, you know, owners got together like, oh no, you done. You know, you can't come back. You what? And then he literally lost his whole football career over something like that. So I think people need to understand that they do have a voice, and there are some things that they can do to deal with those certain cops that are, you know, corrupt or who, you know, are always picking at certain ones. So what is that procedure, and then what do they need to do in order to see it through?
First thing, a lot of the complaints that people have about certain officers as other officers, we have a problem with them too. We don't like them too. You know, we know they're doing things they're not supposed to too. But us reporting and a civilian reporting has like we're talking about weight. It has a different kind of weight. It's not balanced at all. Civilians have more weight, more power to get a bad officer off the street, out of a department. But what's the key? How do you do that? You're like, well, we not getting on social media, just talking about it. You know, not just, you know, every time you see a police officer scoff. No, you can get an officer out of there. There's a thing called a grievance, which you can go and fill out at any police department as it pertains to officer. If an officer's doing something he doesn't have any business doing, you give his name and badge number. We are required to give you that if you ask us for that. And then you make a grievance and you put that officer's name on that grievance. You say what he did. But if you're just talking about it at home, nothing's ever going to happen. Right. You gotta fill out that grievance, put that officer's name on it, say what he did, and guess what? Don't just walk away and just say they're going to handle it. You give it a couple of days and you come back and follow up. Not on the phone, in person. You need to make sure they see your face on that camera in every police department when you walk through that door. So when you say, I've been there 5 times, we can subpoena that camera or that police department and show that you've been there 5 times and they've done nothing. Because we have to tell you what happens as far as what's going on. Now, we don't have to tell you how he was reprimanded, but they have to let you know what's going on, what's happening with that officer. If you don't like the result, you still see him on the street doing what he's doing, you write another one and you walk in there. Don't do it online. You don't call on the phone. You go in there and put it in writing, because you create a paper trail. And that's what you want, because the same way you want these guys off the street, good officers want them gone.
Yo, the wait continues. Tune in every Monday, 9 a.m. as we drop another episode, as we drop more weight. You don't want to miss it. It's your boy, Kizzie, in the building. Let's get it.
This is bad, officer. It's not going to be the same weight as you guys. So you have to follow up. Don't stop until you get the results that you want, because the civilian has more power to get guys out of there. But make sure your ducks are in a row. Now, if you're talking about, you're driving drunk and they came over there and they arrested you and you ain't getting nothing, but you done blew a 2.5 on a breathalyzer, okay. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about when your profile, when you've been handled wrong, when your rights have been violated, official oppression, those things can get officers out of there. And a lot of times when big grievances come against officers, the police department don't want to deal with it. They'll get him out of there. But you can't just let them do it. You have to stay on them. Follow up. I can't stress that enough. Follow up.
Wow. It's interesting, because I know when we was talking, I was like, well, you saying that, but like on a lot of jobs, there are shortages.
Yes, sir.
And it's like, well, we shorthanded. So did they really do something? And that's why, I love the fact that you said, you got to follow up, because the reality of it is, when it's something that we want done, we go after it,
Sir.
And
yes,
I think about Black Lives Matter when, things are going on and they coming out, they protesting, but then, once it's died down, then it's died down. You don't hear nothing about them really. So it's like, I want to go back to when you talked about you educating yourself, and you wanted to you did it for one reason, but it was like, well, while I'm here, I might as well really get the understanding of it to the highest level. And you talked about how there are police officers that don't even know all the law. So talk to people about how important it is for them to know the law. So that way, when they do encounter some of these bad apples, they'll know what their rights are. And when they go and do the complaints and stuff like that, they not only will they know the law and and know the ins and outs. When they make their complaints, they'll be able to say, hey, this is what he did, versus, because you don't want to get into he say, she say. But when you got your facts behind you and that officer don't have the facts, then now you got something to put forth.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you say that about the rights. It's so crazy, because what I've gotten so many times, I deal with people, I know my rights. You can't do that. I know my rights. And I'm like, okay, so what are your rights? Well, you can't just do that. I'm like, no, that's not how it works. You need to do the work. The same way you search engine and do everything and get on TikTok and all these social media platforms searching the new clothes, the new shoes, or what happened with Beyonce this week. You can do the same thing with the Texas Penal Code. You can do the same thing. It's readily available on the internet. Any law of the state of Texas is on the internet for your reading procedure. You ain't got to pay for it. Okay. So, and that's the thing. You have to study and understand. Now, what I don't want to do, and I don't urge you to do, is the moment you encounter an officer and they've had probable cause that offense have occurred and they're attempting to arrest you, question you, that's not the time to show that officer you know more than them. Because that's not going to bother me. But like I said earlier, there's other different officers. Another officer, you talking back to him or trying to play them on a scene, they might take it personally and something bad could happen. They may do something very wrong because you just checked them on something. So there's a time and a place. I'm going to keep saying survive the encounter. Survive the encounter. Let that officer make his mistakes. You got a phone. You can record us. We can't stop you from recording us. We can tell you to move if you're not involved in what we're doing and say, hey, you got to be away from the scene. But you can record. I don't mind. I feel like I'm recorded all the time anyway. But that's not the time to fight. They say what they say, pick and choose your battles. Let that officer make his mistakes so you can become a millionaire. Okay? If that's a way to make you get amped up, let them make that mistake so you can become a millionaire. Because if their official oppression is a big deal. That's like the number one thing officers lose their job over, official oppression. I'm gonna just give y'all some homework. Google what that means, what that look like, what's the charge for that. They out of there. They violate your rights. So let them do that, and you document. Okay. So if you have all your ducks in a row and you document these things and you're studying the law, trust me, I've met some people in traffic stops that know the law forward and backwards better than any police officer I ever met. So that's the thing. Sometimes if you know the law and and you're doing what you're supposed to be doing in that moment. Key word, doing what you're supposed to be doing in that moment. You're not actively violating the law. Okay? Then we can present that. All right. But you need to do your homework when it comes to that. And to your point, Dom, by what you were saying about, when I got in, I was like, I wanted to know as much as I could. I wanted to know because I've seen officers get owned on scenes, like owned. I've had to stop officers from doing things on scenes and say, hey, bro, I can see your temperature rising. Hey, move around. I got it, bro. Go on back. I got it. Because everybody's not wired the same. Mm-hmm. But what we have to understand in the United States, 61% of police officers are what? White. Right behind them, you have 21% Hispanic, and then you have 10% Black. So Black officers are only 10%. Only one under us are Asians and Indian. Wow. Middle Eastern people as well. So we're 10%. Okay. So who you're gonna be complaining about is probably gonna be either most likely a white officer. But I don't want you to be discouraged, like, oh, they ain't gonna do nothing to the white guys. Most of them, I know, I get it, but I'm here to tell you. I'm here to tell you. Now, in these times, the governor, anybody can get it right now. Anybody can get it. Yeah. But if, like they say, if there's no complainant or a victim, then a crime never occurred.
Wow. All about evidence.
It's all about you got to have a victim. You got to have somebody say, I was wrong. I got done wrong.
It was a guy that actually he was on trial for killing somebody, and he got off because of lack of evidence. And he killed him, but he got off as far as like self-defense. Like it was like, oh, well, it was, so, but it was because of, the lack of evidence. And then he was out, wasn't even out 3 days, and his girlfriend winds up dead. And they said it was him. So, and then some of the jurors came back. They was like, we felt he was guilty, but because of the evidence, we couldn't say that he murdered somebody.
Exactly.
So, when you have the evidence that you have, and you present that evidence, now it's like, okay, well, they can't really, So, man, I want to. How important is it for you?
As far as what?
To come home every day to your wife and your children.
So one thing, and I've talked about this with my wife and everything, man, because we had conversations about that, and she understands, but it's hard. It's very difficult because no police officer gets up and goes to work and says, I'm gonna die today. And anything can happen because we're pretty much the only civilian job in the nation that carries a gun every day, and everybody, and we're not loved and liked by everybody either. But one thing I do, I have this thing that I do every morning. I get up and my wife always asks me, like, why are you doing that? Why are you sitting on the edge of the bed? Every day I sit up on the edge of the bed when I get up for about 2 minutes. I just sit there and I'm processing because I'm thinking like this could be the day, and I'm thinking, I'm thinking about my children. I do my prayer. I'm thinking about my children. I'm thinking about my wife. I'm thinking about my family. I'm like, if this is the day, let me get my mind clear. And you think like, dang, why would you want to go to work knowing like any day you could die? Any day, one upset person can just roll up on you and just blast you. Because we know that action is faster than reaction. You ain't Doc Holliday. You don't know what a person's doing. A person can kill a police officer anytime they want to. Because guess what? Most police officers don't think nobody gonna do nothing to them because I'm the police.
Yeah.
I don't think like that. The military got me on a whole nother level when it comes to that. But it can be overwhelming over time if you carry it, and that's why I get up and I release that before I start my day. And while I'm driving into work, I'm just letting it go and just clearing my mind because it can stress you. It can stress you out. It can make you worry. It can make you handle things a certain kind of way. And it's unhealthy. It's unhealthy. You have to release it because this is not a job. This is not going to McDonald's every day or going to Walmart or nothing like that. You're actively engaging the community's worst.
Yeah.
When there's a problem, people call the police to solve it or to intervene and come help me. That's why I'm not a fan. And some of your viewers might be upset. I'm not a fan of the defund the police because then what happens? Then the monsters have free reign to do whatever they want to do. I don't agree with defund. I agree with getting rid of the bad ones. I'm all for that. I would help in any way I can. Let's get rid of the bad ones. We gotta, I think we should focus on legislation because one thing I can tell you, about if I have a problem at work, right? And I think my department is treating me unfairly, I can do a grievance and maybe Inspector General might come in and talk to a few people. But imagine if the Inspector General comes down, picks your police department and questions everybody and say, who are the bad cops? Individually talks to each officer and say, who are the bad cops? You know why that's not going to happen? Because one thing, all the officers in that department know who the bad guys are. They know who the guys that got away with excessive force and still have a job. They know the guys who violated somebody's official oppression that have jobs. They don't want that. They don't want that. They don't want government interference in that because you wouldn't have as many cops. Because guess what? 61% of cops are white. That's jobs. That's tax paying. When nobody, when there's not even enough cops as it is.
Yeah. Man, that I'm glad you talked about how you sit on the bed and you said it can affect you if you let it. So it's like you release it, and that's why this platform is here. About dealing with weight and getting rid of that weight, because you talk about even with some of those bad officers, maybe some of the officers are not bad, but you opened up by saying we're human, and we all go through things, through life. But if I, if I'm married and I go through something with my wife, then hey, it is what it is. But if you go through something with your wife and you ticked off and upset because she didn't call you out your name, and she didn't got all up in your face and did that, and then you out there on the beat, and then somebody, and all you see is her. You don't even see them.
Good point.
You see her doing this and da 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 da, and you ain't that. So so you got officers out there that probably aren't bad, but because this is what they, because they've had something that happened at the house, and they've dealt. I know some guys that drive trucks, and I've had conversations with them, and they like, man, I got an argument with my wife and this and that, and She don't understand. I got to go out here and drive this truck.
Yeah.
And see, and I'm like, yeah, that's a real place. Because to drive a truck, you got to concentrate. You got to pay attention. Your eyes got to be moving the whole time. But if you got all this stuff in your head going on, now you just out there mad, just driving all kind of crazy. And then what? Next thing you know, what? You end up in an accident, and you probably gonna kill 10 people. You know what I'm saying? Because of that truck and the speed and everything else, or even yourself. So there's a reality and there's a realness in the fact that you know, everybody's human. Everybody have bad days. Everybody have moments. I did a video about that. Protect your moments.
Yeah.
You know, and so the fact that you have an understanding of knowing that, because number one, the Bible say, you know, we don't know the day or the hour. Like all of us is going to die.
Yes, sir.
At the time that we're born, it's a celebration. Like, yay! But guess what? Our clock, we on the clock.
We're on the clock.
We're on the clock because at some point we're gonna die. Whether we die in that first few moments or we die at 99, and somewhere in between that, you know what I'm saying? We're gonna leave this earth. So it's like, you know, there is not a set time or a plan, you know, when it's gonna happen. I mean, there's people that, you know, live and do all the right things, and they on their way home and bam, you know, died, you know, a block away from their house.
Yes, sir.
Just get off the phone with oh yeah, baby, I'll be there in a minute. And then a few hours later, she's like, where you at?
Where you at?
He gone. Or she gone. So it's like, man, so it's so important to for people to understand. And this is why I wanted to do this, man, because I said, you know, you always hear the negative. You always hear the negative. You always hear the negative. And I'm like, no, man, I'm like, I get it. I really get it. I get the frustration. I get being upset. But like, man, y'all know we dealing with human people. Y'all know we dealing with imperfect people as well. So it's like, and now the sad part about it is when you're dealing with an imperfect person that has a gun, you know, that intensifies things. Like you said, you know, the job that you have, you're not going to McDonald's.
Yeah.
So the degree, it's a higher degree of you losing your life versus somebody, you know, working the drive-through.
And guess what? You're not allowed to have a bad day. Think about that. Think about that weight that you carry every day. You're not allowed to have a bad day.
So maybe, so if you're not allowed to have a bad day, I wonder why. I wish you had the numbers on how many officers end up in divorce.
You know what? I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I did research it, and police officers are just as bad as military. The divorce rate is very high, very high. And it was so crazy. Is like some women know that, you know, that they've been married to police officers. It's not for the faint-hearted, man. When I was in the Navy, funny story, man. It's funny point. They always said the hardest job in the world is to be a Navy wife because your husband's always gone. He's always gone. He's there for a couple months. Might have to go out to sea, or he might have to go overseas. They say it's the hardest job. But I say it's the hardest job being a civilian is being a police wife, because guess what? Every day you know that your husband or wife is going into a hazardous situation, is a hazardous environment every single day. You don't know if he's coming back or she's coming back, because anything can happen.
That's a lot.
Just think about that.
That's a type of weight, boy. Woo.
Just think about that.
You gotta be, you know, number one, you know, if you don't know who God is, I suggest you get to know him if you're gonna be in those type of situations. And I believe that helps out a lot your you know, your spirituality, or, you know, whoever you serve. Hopefully it's Jesus Christ. But, you know, we know everybody serve at different things and places and universes and all that.
Yeah.
But my point is,
so,
you know, you gotta, it's so deep that you can't, with your own natural mind, with your own capabilities, you can't handle that. You know, you can't carry those types of things. So it's like you got to be able to find a source to where it's, you know, you're able to deal with it and be stress free. And like I said, what you do every day is remarkable because you allow yourself to. Man, I did a video called "Embrace the Hardness."
Okay.
And exactly what you do every day, you are embracing the hardness. You understand before you leave your house, this may be my last day. And that's a hard pill to swallow. See, the guys that go out every day and just, man, I'm going to work. They're not embracing that. So, when they get stressed out and when they get, then they get all worked up and they anxiety is all over the place and they just, but when you embrace that hardness, understanding that, hey, this may be my last day. So instead of me going out and with an attitude or whatever, I'm gonna be the best version of me I can be because I want to be. If this gonna be my last, let me enjoy it. Let me be able to bring a smile on somebody's face. Let me be able to impact somebody. Let me be able to help somebody. Let me. I'm gonna let my wife know I love her. I'm gonna tell my kids I love them. But I don't want to leave here with just stuff in my mind all over the place and I'm stressed out, looking all over my shoulders every 2 seconds because I don't believe you can't live like that. Look, I don't understand how drug dealers operate. Because it's like, man, you always looking over your shoulders. You can't trust nobody.
Man.
Like, what kind of life is that? I don't want to live like that. That's too stressed out. I can't trust. I can't trust you. I can't trust you. I'm looking over my shoulders every 2 seconds. Everybody walk up to you. You looking them up and down. Got your hand on your piece. Like, bro, really over money? Nah, bro, I'm cool.
I like that. I like that example you used about the drug dealer having to look over his shoulder. And the funny thing is, what a lot of people don't know is that the same way we deal with the public and somebody could, because there's people out there that go after police officers. I've gotten flagged down in my patrol car. People telling me, "You're a tyrant. I hate you guys. You're a disgrace." Just I don't even know you, bro. You know what I mean? You got those people coming at you. But then what most people don't know is that inside of policing, within these departments, there's a culture, there's a lot of politics. You got officers that go after other officers that are like, especially your minority officers. I'm not going to say who goes after us, but you can put two and two together. But they trying to get us out of there too, because a lot of times what you'll see is that, like I told you, we have to be overqualified for the same job. So you got officers that try to mess over other officers all the time. Like always try to find them doing something wrong, always trying to, get in arguments with them and get you out of character and stuff like that. So you got your department that you're in, and then you got the public, and you're in between that. How do you balance that? Like you said, you got to have a higher power, man. You got to have somebody to release that to and say, look, God got me. He got me because I got it. I'm getting it from work. I'm getting it from the public. I'm trying to protect and serve. Like who's going to appreciate what I'm doing? Who's gonna like understand that I'm not just doing this because I have a good time, finding people doing things wrong.
Man. You know what, man? This is so good, and but I'm gonna have to wrap it up, man. We might have to do a part 2 just because, you know what I'm saying.
For the culture, baby. For the culture.
Yeah, because I know that you are in the school system as well, and I want to be able to unpack that because I know there's a lot of children out and teens and all of that. But I'm not gonna do it on this episode because I believe what we have unpacked it. As a matter of fact, I might just do that just for the school system by itself. Just that part of law enforcement. But man, I truly, man, appreciate you. Do you have anything closing, man, that you just want to say just to the public, man, of what you would like for us to know, what I'm saying, that as a police officer and how we could, just all work together, man, and live to see another day.
I mean, I just want people to just first educate yourself as much as you can on the law, like the laws that pertain to you. Know the agency that services your area. Make sure you're, man, speak to those officers. I mean, introduce yourself. Say, hey, I'm such and such, because you never know when you're gonna have an interaction with them. You know what I mean? You never know when you have an actual. They're not the ops like these kids say. All the cops aren't the ops. Okay.
Yeah.
But engage in your community when it comes to your police officers, man. Know the law. And survive the encounter, man. I preach that so much, is this: survive the encounter. Don't try to fight with law enforcement. Don't try to go argue for tit for tat because 99% of the time you're not going to win that battle.
Yeah.
You want to survive the encounter so you can win the long game. What they always say, play chess, not checkers.
Yeah.
If the officer does something he ain't got no business, you take it up. You do what I said. Establish. Go to that agency. Find out where they work. Go to the agency, and you file that grievance, and you follow up until you get the results that you're looking for. It's so much I want to get into, but I'm gonna wait till next time. But Dom, man, I appreciate you having me on here, man. I hope your viewers got a lot to say, man. And if they want me back, man, I'll be back, man.
That's what's up, man. That's what's up, man. Well, again, I appreciate you, man. Much love, man. We brothers for life, bro. And maybe next episode we'll share a little something about our past, a little something we used to do. You know what I'm saying? We got photos and everything, but we got tapes.
Oh,
got tapes. That's not before we go back. We got tapes.
We got,
you know what I'm saying?
VHS tapes, bro. VHS tapes, bro.
Oh, you didn't tell me about the VHS? We got video.
Bro, we got a whole concert video, bro.
Yeah.
We're not showing those clips on here, bro. The wardrobe was out of control, bro.
Oh my God. Oh wow.
Maniac,
man. Well, man, hey, again, I appreciate you, man. Much love to you. Blessings to the family, man. And y'all know what time it is. This has been Wait, Don't Shoot. Look out, man. It's coming soon. But it's your boy, Kizzie in the building. Can't wait to talk. Y'all know what time it is. Let's get it.